Hello, YouTubers, IGN bloggers, and movie fans in general, I guess. My name is Jeff, known around the internets as Just Some Dude. I've been reviewing movies on the IGN blogs for a couple years, and I've always watched movie reviews on YouTube. I've always enjoyed watching people like Rambo Raff, for instance, or even the Young Turks now have a movie review show that they do on YouTube. So I'd try to get in on that action and kind of add these videos as a discussion tacked onto my written reviews. But actually, for the first two movies I'm going to do today, I haven't actually written the reviews for them yet. I just saw them over the weekend and I figured I'd talk about them. But, first of all, before we start off, bear with me. This is my first stab at this. So, I'm sure there'll be a lot of awkward pauses and uh, stumbling over words and whatnot. Uh, so hopefully I'll get better as I get more comfortable with it. I'm also kind of weirded out by the fact that if my neighbors hear me, they'll think I'm talking to myself. Anyway, the movies I saw were Avatar and Up in the Air with George Clooney, both nominated for Best Picture. I'll get the big one, Avatar, out of the way real quick for you. I basically hated it. I found it boring, and it didn't. It's a story we've seen before a billion times, from Disney movies to all sorts of epics. It didn't really do anything new with that except visual effects, which I appreciate good visual effects, and I would have liked a little more action, to be honest. But you have to have something. This is something I always go on about in my written reviews. You have to have something at the core to make them care about what's happening. Pretty stuff is fun to look at for only so long if you don't care about the characters or what's happening. And that was basically my problem with Avatar. It was too long, too boring, too many scenes of the main characters floating around, flying around on fucking horses or whatever. Now, this is probably a bad movie to pick for my first YouTube review because I swear I don't do this often, but I didn't finish it. I probably saw 90% of it before I got up from my buddy's recliner and said, "You know what? I've had enough Avatar. I'm going home." I just by the time I got to the end, when you knew the blue people or whatever were gonna fight back against the evil whatever corporation or whatever it was, the humans, I just didn't care anymore. I knew I knew every beat that was gonna happen right up till the end, and I just didn't care. I was bored. I was bored to tears. Like I said, too many scenes where the story didn't even advance, where it would just be him and the other girl getting the him and the blue girl getting to know each other, and and falling for each other, and you get where it's going. You're kind of like, just get to the next point, you know. So I didn't like it at all. It's not a movie I'd recommend to anybody. I'm kind of baffled by the fact that it was nominated for an Oscar, and the fact that it's was such a big hit, because honestly, it's not something I could see a lot of other people liking either. It's not good science fiction. Doesn't have enough action to keep people, your average moviegoer, interested. It's too long. Requires an attention span for something that is boring in the first place. But so yeah, it's probably a terrible movie to choose as my first little video review here. But if I had to rate it based on the 90% of it I saw, I would probably give it 2 out of 5 stars. I mean, it did nothing for me. And the other movie I saw earlier last week was Up in the Air, which is basically, it's like a road slash romantic comedy set against the current recession. George Clooney plays this guy, basically works for a firm that fires people for other companies, so they don't have to do it. And obviously business is booming because everyone's getting laid off. And George Clooney gets paired with this young straight out of college girl played by, I forgot her name, but she's really good in it. I think she might have been nominated for a supporting actor or supporting actress nod. But and she's got this idea that, hey, we're wasting so much money on travel expenses, sending these people all over the country to fire people when you could just fire people through video chat. And he disagrees with that, so they get paired up, and he takes her on the road to show her the ropes. And meanwhile, there's this whole other subplot where there's this girl that George Clooney meets up with all the time, who's a businesswoman. And they try to coordinate their schedules so they could hook up for some hotel sex and whatnot. And that's like the main plot, but there's also the character story about George Clooney where you're kind of wondering what makes this guy tick. He's doesn't have a lot of personal connections with people. He prefers being on the road. He talks about how he's had to stay at his hometown apartment for like 40 in Omaha for like 40 days out of the year, and how much, he'd rather just be on the road. And so there's this whole other aspect of it where you're trying to understand what his deal is, and I was kind of worried about halfway through it that they weren't gonna like delve into, what his deal is so much and what makes him the way he is, but they kind of do. They kind of do touch on it in a subtle way. The whole movie is pretty subtle. It has all these nice little touches in it, like in his apartment, his alcohol's in little airplane bottles, and they show all the little details of what it's like to go through an airport nowadays, how you have to take off your belt and your shoes and whatnot. And of course, I love the stuff in there about the recession. There's even some interesting there are cameos by people like Zach Galifianakis and J.K. Simmons, who is by far the best cameo, as people that are getting fired by them. But then there are also people that you're like, they just look like average people, standard extras basically. But there's some weird clip near the end where they're getting interviewed and you start to wonder, are these people real? Like, were they really laid off? I think they actually are real people. So there's like a little bit of documentary mixed in with it. The movie has lots of kind of an artful touch to it. It really kind of opens up as it goes further. At the beginning you think it's just about him firing people and that whole dilemma of how they should fire people. Should it be video chat or should you do it in person? But it kind of opens up more, becomes a warmer movie about him. It's got some, and it manages to surprise me all the way up until the end. You think, oh, this your normal romantic comedy. This is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. He's gonna hook up with this girl, and that'll be the end. But it defies expectations throughout. And even though at the end it seemed to have like 10 end scenes where you're like, oh, they can end it here, they can end it here, they can end it here. It seemed kind of struggle with how to end on the right note, but actually, every little step along the way towards the end, I felt like the right choice for the movie, and all the parts at the end I thought kind of added to the movie. I liked every kind of twist and turn it took. Really, a great film, kind of a beautiful film in a way, and a sad film, even though it's a comedy. Think of it kind of like Jerry Maguire meets planes, trains, and automobiles, and you're kind of on the right track. If that sounds like something you'd be into, definitely give it a shot. I'd give it my highest rating. I'd give it 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a great film. And it looks like I'm just about running out of time. My next movie will be A Serious Man. If I don't do it on here, on YouTube, as usual, we'll have a written review probably on the old IGN blogs. Well, until next time.